listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Welcome back to part 2 of this multi-part series on unblocking your energy to unlock success with your business. Thanks so much for joining me. And hopefully you have already listened to part 1 so that you're not in the dark. But if not, we covered a lot in it. And in this particular episode, we're going to start jumping into the next topics. And I want to make sure that you are up to speed. So far we were really just talking about the pesky emotions that come up for network marketers and entrepreneurs and females that own and run their own businesses, and how similar those themes and feelings can be no matter what industry you're in, and how the process of the emotional freedom technique, when applied correctly, can help you to make progress like you've never been able to make before because of the way that it really works with your entire energy system, mind, body, soul, spirit, all that stuff, without even the need to be, getting woo-woo about it or anything. It just simply works. Like I mentioned in the last episode, it's been known as the try it on anything technique. And I have found it to be so incredibly instrumental in my business and the shifts that I have been able to make and implement. Sometimes things that seemed impossible for ages start to shift so much easier when you apply EFT in the right way. Because EFT is all about lowering resistance. It's kind of like a lubricant when you apply it correctly, because when you can lower the resistance, you can really move forward faster, further, in better ways than you've been able to move when you had that resistance and were not as open to change as maybe you are after you practice EFT, along with the different setbacks and challenges that you tend to experience. So that's something I want to talk about today. So as we wrapped up the last episode, we were talking about how personal growth and development has kind of been difficult for a lot of us to make work, and how we end up staying stuck a lot of the time. And although we truly do wish to transform, we truly do wish to level up, so many people can never complete that transformation. They have a really hard time getting present. And since our present moment is the only place that we have power, if we can't get present, it is really hard to make an impact and leave the legacy that we want to. So the next part of what I want to talk to you about in this series is kind of the turning point that I experienced when EFT came into my life as it relates to business. So I went from that period like 4 years ago, when I was that joyless clock watcher, that slave to my to-do list, and just always kind of in the lack and creating more of it as a result of being focused on it. And then something happened and something shifted. I had a great opportunity to step away from home, step away from my family for the weekend, and to go on a retreat with my network marketing team. And that's something I always look forward to, guys. Our team has amazing retreats, and it's soul filling. It's something that you have to earn by achieving certain levels of things. And it just always feels amazing. Something I look forward to. So I was excited to have this opportunity to reset, to get away, not have to change diapers or be woken up in the middle of the night for a weekend, maybe even sleep in my own bed. Who knows? Crazier things have happened. Unfortunately, I got sick right after I got to the retreat. In fact, while I was on the way there. Now, this was right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And in retrospect, I'm pretty sure that's what I had. But, I had no way of knowing that at the time. And it hadn't really gotten to be running rampant yet. This was February of 2020, but it was here for sure. And it was nasty. But I had no way of knowing. I mean, I was fine when I left home. And then I'm driving several hours to where the retreat is. I'm about halfway there and my throat's feeling kind of off and I'm just not quite feeling right. And I don't know, is this going to last a few hours? Is it going to last a few weeks? Is it a cold? Is it a flu? Who knows? You just never know when you start feeling oogie. So I grabbed some cold and flu meds from the gas station and I hope for the best, but I got super sick, guys. And I was feeling really guilty for bringing this to my healthy friends. I had super low energy. And I don't just mean like low energy, like for exercise or getting up and doing things. I mean, my vibe was low. And I was disappointed because I went there and I wanted to be a source of uplifting support. I wanted to be a source of friendship and camaraderie to these ladies, but I was zapped, like totally wiped out. But I was still determined to make the most of it. My mindset had come far enough at that point that I was not focused on the lack. I was focused on, hey, this is my one shot to enjoy and do this, and I'm going to make it count. Now, part of the weekend's festivities was that we got treated to a workshop for EFT tapping. And I know I haven't described tapping in great detail yet in these episodes for this series, but when I went to this workshop, my understanding of tapping was super limited too. But what I did know was that as I did it with the woman who was running the tapping workshop and our group of amazing women that had gotten together for this retreat, it felt like magic. Because as tired as I was from being sick, I felt more energized. And I was a novice, guys. I had no idea what I was doing. I had an awful headache. And as bad as that was, I was able to get the pain to shift and lower as I went through this tapping sequence. And I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I didn't really understand what I was doing. I just was playing follow the leader. Like I often ask you guys to do when we do tap alongs. I often will say, hey, you don't need to know or even understand what you're doing because that's how tapping is. It's scientific and it literally just works. And for me, I think that's one of the coolest things about it as a technique is that, knowing and understanding it makes it work so much better because you can apply it in so many more ways. But somebody can simply tell you, hey, do this and say this, and it works. So I love that you don't have to get it. It's science, you don't even have to believe in it, honestly, to get results. Now, I think anything and everything works a heck of a lot better when you put belief behind it. But how cool is it that you can even be a skeptic and get results? So as I tapped through all of my unhealthiness and my just fog and all the yuck that I was feeling miraculously more energized. I was feeling more clear. And I'm honestly pinch me, seriously, I had a migraine a minute ago. Where the freak did it go? It seemed like some kind of crazy magic or witchcraft that it was able to just go away like that. I'm somebody that has suffered from chronic migraines for a very long time and used to have to take a ton of prescription medications and things that couldn't even touch it. And here I am literally just tapping on some meridian endpoints of my body in a certain sequence while saying certain things. And there goes my headache. If that doesn't make you wonder, hey, why aren't we learning this in more places in our life? And why aren't we more familiar and connected to the power that's in us? That just blew my mind. It was literally the missing piece that I needed to bring my beliefs into sync with my actions. And the act of implementing EFT got my head and my heart speaking to each other like they were just these old friends that had been separated for way too long. And suddenly it was very apparent and clear to me that it wasn't me against the clock, my past failures, my future anxieties. It was me against my energetic blockages. Blew my mind. And never in 40 plus years had I looked at it that way. So in an instant, it all kind of connected for me. And I could discover and see that I could easily get present, that I could be centered and happy. And it was so ridiculously intuitive, even for someone who at that time did not feel at all connected to her intuitive gifts. It was so intuitive. It was so logical. And I really kicked myself for not having started this practice sooner. But as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? And I was ready, guys. I was hungry for real change and to be able to follow a calling that felt meant to be and to understand EFT better and to use it to help other people grow and find the help that they needed to. But much like I had battled feelings when I signed up as a coach with my network marketing company half a dozen or more years ago, I started battling myself about moving forward with getting certified and going after that dream, that calling, that new spark that had ignited inside of me. Because you see, when we lack trust in ourselves, we talk ourselves out of things. And developing intuition and self-trust, as well as a BS radar between what is self-love and what is excuses, that will take you a long way. There's so many things that dance around in our head when we explore new opportunities or ideas, ways that we try to call ourselves out, ways that inner voice of self-sabotage, that inner mean girl just pipes up and tries to shrink us down before we can emerge into that confident, powerful being that we know we're destined to be. And we end up playing small when we do that. And that doesn't serve anybody. But it's all that negative self-talk. It's that like, hey, why don't you get a real job? That dream stealing, buzz killing stuff. And all of that stuff highlights the things that you didn't make work before in your life, the opportunities that maybe you didn't make the most of, the things that you didn't see through. And it makes you forget that your past doesn't define your future and that you're so much more powerful and so much more amazing than all of those little things that you allow to hold you back. Guys, like literally we're stardust and universes and just all sorts of amazingness. And we will allow what we think somebody thinks of us to prevent us from doing something. Like, how crazy is that when you really logically think about it? It's nuts. But I knew I wanted to push forward. And I knew that I needed to get past the buts, get past well, I can't because all that kind of stuff that had started to surface for me. Although, well, it's expensive. I don't have time. The feeling of shame and guilt for things that maybe I previously invested time or money in, things that maybe I never did anything with, or things that I was no longer doing something with. And those things were making me wonder, hey, why isn't this just going to be more of the same? What's going to make me do better with this than I did with X, Y, or Z that I just quit on? And I'll tell you what, if you're a network marketer, you've probably been through these feelings when you signed up or when you talked and had conversations with other people about joining you. They're going through this too. They're feeling simultaneously compelled and repelled. And when you feel that combo, it's usually an indicator that you need to go deeper, that there's something more to it there, that it's part of a greater process. That's also why, at one point or another, nearly every entrepreneur toys with the idea of quitting. They toy with the idea of taking a break, even if they don't want to admit it, even if they never tell anybody else. And it's also the idea why a lot of people that we work with, especially if you're in network marketing, will unexpectedly ghost you or disappear, or maybe they purchase something from you one month and you never hear from them again, or they'll never follow up with you about using it or answer your stuff or whatever else. And it has to do with feelings of self-doubt at the core of it usually. And it happens because those heavy emotions of our lives, they can make us feel defeated before we even start. I mean, if all we had to do was be great at being an entrepreneur or a coach or a network marketer, I mean, if that's all that we had to do, we'd be amazing at it. But like I talked about in the last episode, our lives are so much busier. They're so much more complex than all of that. So the idea of giving up, it honestly seems super logical because being an entrepreneur is never something that you had to do. So nobody said you have to go create your own business or you have to be a network marketer or there's no other options for you or this is it. So make the most of it. Nothing else for you. There's always been another option. And most of us, even if it's subconscious, keep that idea in the back of our heads. So because it's always been super optional, it's also something that we consider disposable. It's something that we think is okay to walk away from. So if we do truly want to succeed the way that so many of us say that we do, we have to be so incredibly intentional and conscious, like more than ever, more than you've ever been. And because it's really easy to feel justified walking away from, dropping the ball on, whatever you want to call it, something that feels like an optional commitment. And especially when that something goes hand in hand with activities and other parts of the business that trigger guilt, self-doubt, shame, overwhelm. And guys, if you don't know how to manage those things, if you don't know how to manage those emotions, and so many people don't, like, don't worry if you don't, like, you're normal, but they ramp up on you so fast and they'll feel like they are running you over and you will retreat. So those emotions, they strip your power and they put you in a place where you can't even imagine how it would be important enough to give your entrepreneurial venture the effort that you know it will take to be successful. So you get into a fight or flight pattern because of that. And that is really tough on your energy system. And honestly, it makes it impossible to perform your best. And these days, when I feel that, and I don't as much anymore ever, but it does come up because, like I mentioned before, the different emotions that you're going to come up against as an entrepreneur, things like limiting beliefs and fears and self-sabotage and fear of success or failure, those things will come up over and over again, even if you are working on them, but they will come up less and less, and they will come up in new and different ways. And these days, when I feel that, I take a few minutes and I do a targeted round of EFT because that lowers my stress and my resistance to whatever it is in under 10 minutes. And it allows me to stay on the path to success instead of detouring towards self-sabotage. And that is what I teach those people that I work with to do too. And it's amazing what a difference that can make. But when I was in the throes of deciding whether to pursue certification to be an EFT practitioner, I bounced it off my hubby. He listened, he took it all in, and it ended up being his belief in me and his desire to see me happily chase my dreams that gave me the backing and the push and the belief that I needed. And I remember him saying still, hey, T, if this is something that you feel called to do, and if it's going to help you in any way, I'm on board. In fact, I want to pay for it and the rest we'll figure out because we always do. And that brought me like such peace and clarity in the moment. And he did the same thing for me when I decided to pursue network marketing half a dozen years ago. And I wasn't sure about it because I was battling similar things. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it or if it's just about, my personal journey or whatever else. And he reassured me. And you know what? Sure. Like, we're married, we share expenses, but it was still a huge gesture of support, especially coming from a guy who to this day has never so much as tapped a round of EFT with me. And has some really funny and unusual ways of trying to explain to people how it works. Like he doesn't really understand what I do in the same way that I do. I don't understand what he does in the way that he does it. So, I mean, I'm definitely not picking on him in any way, but I'm just saying for him to have that belief and support when it's not even something that interests him, it's not his jam, but he loves and supports it being mine. And that really does mean the world. So, as awesome and appreciated as his support was and still is, it made me really teary-eyed to think that he had belief in me that I wasn't finding in myself, if that makes sense. And I knew that learning to understand that part of things, that denied belief in myself, was part of my calling as well. Because I told myself that even if I never used the skills that I was going to learn as an EFT practitioner to build an awesome EFT and energy coaching business like I have today, even if it was just me that benefited, even if it just offered me like more peace or better sleep or less anxiety or more presence in my relationships, I told myself that it would be worth it. And you know what? It's totally true. It would be worth it. But here's the issue with that, okay? It's like the very reason why good is the enemy of great and why perfect is the enemy of better, right? It's this rabbit hole that we go down. Because if you're in network marketing and you had to sign up at some point with a company to be a representative, a coach, an ambassador, or whatever it is that your company calls people that promote their products, you might have gone through this too. And you might have said something like, hey, even if I'm the only one that gets, healthier from this, fitter from this, has an awesome result because of whatever this product is that I am now promoting, then it's worth it. And when we do that, when I did that, it allowed me to lean into good instead of great and to back away from better because of an illusion that better required perfection. And we have to get real and we have to get conscious about that because we use this kind of manufactured self-love to water down our greater goals and desires. It's our way to take the sting out of something because we don't quite believe in our ability to do more. Not yet, at least. But the thing is, when I would tell myself that, if I was being honest with myself, my true vision and desires for both my network marketing business and my EFT education and business included so much more than me just helping myself. But that possibility scared the crap out of me. And so I played small and I lowered my expectations and I allowed myself to begin with one foot out the door. And guys, that slows you down. And we think that we're buffering or we're saving ourselves from hurt or rejection or failure. But really, we're just bringing it on. And we do more of this than we realize. And it has a name. It's called psychological reversal. And this phenomenon shows up pretty much everywhere in your life where your beliefs and your actions are doing two different things. When we know better, but we don't do better, when we skip our workouts, when we eat the things we know make us feel lousy, when we struggle with addiction, crappy relationships. Oh God, so many things, guys. I'm sure like just in me going through that, you can think of ways and places that this is showing up in your life like right now. And EFT has amazing ways to resolve it, okay? But here's the thing. Real, true self-love, not the made-up stuff that we use to excuse ourselves from the real work and our greater purpose. Real self-love, guys, is of the utmost importance. And it is something that most people have not gotten a real feel for. So many people think that self-love is cheesy, it's narcissistic. Plenty of other people just honestly can't conjure up what it would be like to truly love themselves. Like it's too much. I know plenty of people that can't even look in the mirror and say, I love you without tearing up or turning away from themselves. And it is so much to think that. And it is part of my mission to help really elevate the importance of self-love and help people find it. And because, it's so worth working on because it is literally the seat of your power and it is the cornerstone of your well-being. And without that, it is really hard to find your tribe, grow your business, do your thing, and be a success with it. And EFT is one of the most effective and fast ways to work on improving self-love. Now, it called me out fast, and it helped me to realize before I had too much of a chance to play small, that I had too many people to help to only help myself. Now, I embrace the ripple effect every day. I am so glad and grateful for all the ways that EFT and my network marketing business help me personally. Not gonna lie, but it's so much cooler when I get to see that spread, you know? And I can make so many more ripples and make it stretch out so much further when I stand in my power, project it, and share it. Okay. So I want you to think about how that would be different for you if you were really centered in your own power and how that might show up differently in your business. Because, man, it's huge. It is really, really huge. And the next thing that I kind of want to move into is the ways that personal development tends to fall short for us. Because I know that I am not the only personal development junkie here listening to this podcast. And it's no secret that I'm a huge fan of self-development. And I have tried so many different modalities over the years. You name it. I've either had an interest in it, researched it, tried it, gone and done it, gotten certified in it, what have you. I love personal development, self-education, self-development, whatever it is that you want to call it. So many names and so many ways that it shows up in our life. In any way that I felt I needed to grow, change, fix something, I applied it to my life. But for so many years, it was like I was slapping it on like a Band-Aid and thinking that if I learned enough, that the results would come. So, like, do you ever think to yourself, if I just learn the right thing, I'll be all set? But then you keep getting all stuck in the self-doubt. That's what was happening to me. I felt like no matter how much I learned, there was always this one question that just kept coming up over and over again, no matter what. And it was, if I understand this so well, why am I not experiencing the change and transformation I desire? And that is where I think that standalone personal development falls short. And where EFT has, like, in really effective ways, helped me to bridge the gap and to get things to integrate and actually take form in reality, in present time. So many healing and development techniques will create positive change to a certain degree, no doubt about it. But a lot of them collapse when it comes to trickier issues where, like, strong emotions or deeply ingrained belief patterns exist. And we all have them. So typically, we all get to this place, this set point where we find ourselves stuck. Tapping allows you to shift and work through those trickier issues. And it also makes an amazing complement to, like, every other technique or modality or counseling or therapy that's out there, meaning it will allow you to take whatever you're already doing to the next level. And it allows you to help yourself, which is just, it's so empowering, guys, because it can be really mainstream to just devour personal development, like I talked about. Just be like, and sometimes it's even an avoidance thing, or we're avoiding the things that we know actually really shift the needle on our business. And we're like, oh, I'm just going to listen to this book or learn something new or whatever else. And it's like we're covering our bases and we feel like we're taking care of issues when we immerse ourselves in personal development. But it kind of like, if somebody, maybe you're reading a book on something specific to your business, and perhaps you have a mentor or an accountability partner or somebody else that does the business with you, and they call you out on that thing. And like, you really need to do that thing that you keep saying you're going to do. And instead of saying that you've been doing it or owning up to the fact that you're not doing it. Instead, you're like, yeah, I'm reading a book about that right now and it's blowing my mind. Or, when I finish this training course, this program, whatever it is, then it's on. I'm on it. But having your mind blown or learning a ton about something, that happens in your comfort zone. That's like I talked about in the last episode. That is the whole victims enjoy entertainment. Victors adore education. And, you're being entertained in your comfort zone. And it doesn't equate to changing a thing about your life or your business unless you leverage that education, that information that your brain has been collecting and use it. And that's where it gets hard for so many of us. What do you do with all that? How do you apply it? Why isn't it working? Now what? Oh, I'm frustrated. I give up. When it becomes a cycle. We try so hard and often without realizing what we're doing to avoid pain and struggle. It's a natural thing. And we aren't taught how to do the work in a way that actually makes things easier on ourselves instead of more complicated. But emotions are always the things that are blocking the pathway to success. And that's something that you really need to absorb and take in because they're blocking your pathway to success and they're blocking your potential clients' pathway to success because both you and your potential clients are trying to avoid pain and struggle. Life holds mirrors up to us all the time. And we only judge and criticize that which exists on some level within ourselves. So the answers and the true shifts come from learning to manage our emotions and then to maximize our true power to be unstoppable. And the emotional freedom technique is the thing, the modality, the technique, the process that can make that happen. So I'd like to talk a little bit now about your level of personal emotional freedom and where you might be finding yourself stuck. And I'll just ask some questions and call it a quiz if you like. And then we can kind of see what areas you would be most greatly impacted and what areas would improve the most for you if you were to address them with EFT. You can grab a piece of paper and a pen if you want to, or if you're walking or working out or in your car or what have you, then just think about your answers in your head. And that's totally sufficient too. I'll try to recap this in the downloadable that you can get in the show notes as well. So don't forget to grab that after you're done listening. So don't overthink it. These are yes, no questions. So I'm going to go through pretty quick and just answer yes or no, realizing that this is for your own self-discovery and your own growth. So pretending that anything is different than it really is just will not serve you. So if it applies to you at all, even a smidge, just own it. No big deal, no judgment, no worries, okay? Because what we resist persists and what we ignore needs to be explored. And that's the premise here. So I just want to start with this. And this is a yes, no statement. I focus on the things I am grateful for after a day of hustling and working my business. Yes or no? Next statement. I am happy with who I am. Yes or no? I think clearly in times of frustration. Yes or no? I can drift off to sleep unbothered. Yes or no? I enjoy present moments and I live in them. Yes or no? I bounce back quickly in my business when something goes awry and I feel free to get back into the swing of doing my business immediately. Yes or no? I lash out or get snippy. Yes or no? I worry about my future. Yes or no? I make little things into big deals. Yes No. I constantly compare myself to other people in my line of business. Yes or no? I think I probably just don't want it bad enough, and that's why my success hasn't taken off. Yes or no? So here's how you can understand your answers. If you answered no for any of the first 6 questions, or yes for any of the ones after that, that indicates a lack of emotional freedom. And if you answered the opposite, then you're doing really great with managing and processing your emotions in those specific areas. And they don't require the same focus or attention that the other areas do. So hold on to those answers. If you decide that you want to do tapping in the future, you can certainly start by working on some of those exact areas to begin making a difference straight away. So with that in mind, I want to break for our next episode. And in the third part of this series, I am going to be helping you to understand what emotional freedom is and why having more of it actually matters when it comes to your success, your happiness, or your other desired outcomes. So I hope you'll tune in for that next episode. And in the meantime, definitely do the downloads and check them out from the first 2 parts of this series. And we will reconnect on part 3. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.